So, my dear friend, hello, hello. It's a Sunday evening, and I felt inspired to make a little video. I wanted to share something that I've came to understand as the path of grace. The path of grace. That every single life experience is gifted to us as an opportunity to wake up to who we are, our true nature. Our true nature is a transcendental loving peace. And that every single life experience, moment to moment, those microseconds, those minutes of the mundane that we often overlook, is gifted to us. Our life is a gift of grace. A gift of grace that so many of us reject, deny, kick and scream and revolt against, all the while overlooking this opportunity to awaken in grace, through grace, to your true nature that's free and everlasting, peace, consistent, steady. Questions might arise as you hear me share this idea. But Lewis, what about all the trauma and the grief and the heartache and the loss and the brutality and the ugliness of life? Surely that's not a gift. Surely that's not a gift. Well, sometimes the medicine is bitter. The very medicine that we need is bitter. Sometimes we need a rude awakening to feel that pain, to know that pain and that darkness, to let that break our hearts into opening, into softening. So often we're hardened, guarded, armored, and we're fighting. We're fighting to stay alive. We're fighting. We're competing. We're separate. We're lonely. We're isolated. And we're suffering. But we're suffering because we're isolated. We've isolated ourselves. We've cut ourselves off from grace. In our desire to cling to this temporary little body, this little vessel that is aging and decaying as we speak right now, as we cling to this dust that is becoming our life, we separate ourselves from grace. This is our opportunity to awaken. So often we run from pain, we cling to pleasure. And this endless cycle, this endless momentum, avoiding pain, running from pain, seeking pleasure, seeking pleasure. And this keeps the wheel going. This keeps us in motion, chasing our tail, so to speak, all the while overlooking our true nature, which is absolutely unblemished. It's neither here nor there. It's neither pain or pleasure. It's free of that condition. It's peace. Peace. Your true nature is the very thing that will liberate you from this worldly suffering, this turmoil, this human turmoil that we find ourselves in. It's a very interesting thing. You see, as human beings, we're all familiar with the depictions of Buddha and Jesus, even Krishna. We often see those halos around them, that golden kind of light. That golden light is a symbol expressing the liberated being, the liberated consciousness, enlightenment, in light, in ment, ment coming from the Latin word mente, meaning mind. Enlight in mind. Light in the mind is what's happening there, and it's being depicted as that symbol of the halo, that golden aura around the head. We all have this potential. We all have this potential to awaken, to liberate this light. But why is it that some people have the liberated light? Some people, they walk in the room and there's a sense of like, the energy is uplifted. They're filled with love and grace and kindness and compassion. And then there's others. They're filled with hatred and envy and all that gnarly hatred and emotion. And it's palpable. We can feel it. Feeling the vibe of the room, we say. We feel it, we respond to it. So there's this emanation within each of us to varying degrees. For some people, this liberated light begins to emerge when they fall in love with someone. That's a great example of this, that honeymoon period of, wow, I've fallen in love, life's magical. This is a glimmer of the potential of this love, but only a glimmer. 3 months, 6 months, 6 years later, those two that fallen in love, they're fighting, they're squabbling, they're hating one another. How does that happen? Well, that happens from the psychological conditions which become provoked, which build up over time. The conclusions, the rules, and the regulations that we create with our own thought processes and belief, which acts as a limitation to this light. Most people are walking around filled with a whole lifetime of beliefs that are limiting their perspective of the world, limiting their own liberated light here. But this life is the path of grace and an opportunity to decondition the mind with intentionality and release ourselves from that so that we can be consistent and steady. The enlightened one is consistent and steady. They move with life, but they're not reacting to life. They're not experiencing those real ups and downs on that emotional, erratic, uncontrollable level. They move through with grace. We all have the potential of getting to this path of grace. Most people are on the up and down, reacting like a ping pong ball or a pinball machine, all over the place, up and down, left and right. They don't know what day it is. They're raging at the world. And if it's not the world, it's Donald Trump, or it's the television, or it's a reality TV show, or it's their spouse or their children. It's a blooming mess, an uncontrollable mess. It doesn't need to be that way. You see, most people, they're on the roller coaster. They're all over the place, flip-flopping around. The enlightened one is steady, consistent, harmonious, peaceful, surrendered, open, trusting, loving, kind, compassionate. They're not in survival mode. They don't even cling to their own life anymore because their own sense of being has been liberated from this little vessel that they find themselves. Now, this liberated light, we've all got the potential of this liberating. Most of us, we have it trapped under all these psychological conditions, conclusions, identities, worldviews, philosophies, different psychological complexes. The idea of being triggered. We've all experienced that. We're driving or we're going through the world and something is said or done. All of a sudden we're triggered with fury, with frustration, with embarrassment, with anxiety, with fear, with pride. This is all an example of us going along our day, being triggered. Subconsciously, our psychological complexes become activated, hijacks our clear mind, sabotages our day. We start reacting, we start causing all kinds of chaos in the world from this position. because we're reacting to it. We're seeing it as bad. Now, there's this concept of voluntary suffering. Voluntary suffering. Christ, Jesus's life is a great example of this. Pick up your cross and follow me. Don't complain about the cross. Pick it up. Let's go. This is the path. The surrendering of these egoic complexes so that we can transcend them and obtain or attain the everlasting life. To be born again in spirit, free of the limitations of this carnal mind, this animal primal survivalist that just can't get enough sex, can't get enough money, can't get enough pleasure, can't get enough fighting, competing, trying to hoard and protect what they think is theirs. Nothing is ours. Did you create this body? No. Did you come into the world with these clothes, with this English language? No. You acquired it in this lifetime. You acquired it. You did not create it. And when you leave this lifetime, you will not be taking it with you. These clothes ain't coming with me. So are they really mine? Debatable. So what we want to do here, the idea of voluntary suffering is when we're actually looking out for and embracing these opportunities to be triggered. Because the trigger reveals something. The trigger reveals a certain thought process, belief system, identity, philosophy that then comes to the surface. Everyone can be nice and happy when they're on holiday or they're on the Christmas holidays or wherever it is. They're sitting on the beach somewhere in the summertime. Oh, I've made it. I'm feeling so good. Oh, great. That's when the conditions of life are nice and expansive. And there's enough room in that physical condition to accommodate all of our darkness, all of our stuff, our lust, our envy, our pride, our wrath, our fury. But what happens when the conditions of life reduce, as they always do? There's always this motion, the expansion, the contraction. Just like the pulse. Do, 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 do. Expansion, the contraction. This is life. It's ever changing. But so often we're so hell-bent on trying to control this all the time that we overlook our true freedom, our true being. So with this idea of voluntary suffering, our intention is to look out for the triggers, not to be reactive to them. We want to bring as much consciousness into these opportunities to be triggered as possible, because it's in that we can begin to figure out what on earth is going on. Why am I reacting like this? Half the time we react like this because we think it's helping us somehow. It might be a belief that the anger's helpful, that the pride and the clinging to status and self-importance is somehow helpful. A useful tool or an asset in this life. Yeah, for an animal, for a carnal mind. That's important. Because survival is important to the primal animal. It cares about survival. It doesn't care about transcendence. It doesn't care about the spiritual liberation of its soul. So we want to look for these triggers. And as we notice the murmur of rage, the murmur of that adrenaline, of that beating heart, we want to observe it. We want to notice the thoughts that go on through our mind, often violent, grotesque, brutal. And as we acknowledge this, we want to notice the reactiveness of the emotion. The emotion that you feel is 100% connected to the thoughts in your mind. Emotion, energy in motion. You think a certain thought in a particular way, and energy will begin to go into motion here, for better or for worse. Think of someone you love. Think of that warmth, that love, that connection. You'll start to feel that energy, that emotion. Think of someone you hate that's done you wrong or whatever else, and you'll also start to feel another kind of emotion. We're always reacting to the thoughts in our mind. We think it's the external world, but it's entirely subjective. That old saying, what's one man's heaven is another man's hell. Or one man's trash is another man's treasure, or something like this. It's all subjective. It's all subjective. Take this mug, for example. I think the mug serves its function. I like the color of it. You might not like the color of it. But two people could look at this mug. One person loves it. One person cringes at it. They're despising it. Which one's right? There's neither is right or wrong. It's entirely subjective. It's personal. There's a personal relationship with this mug being projected onto it. And we're the creators of that projection. We're defining what this means. Even the idea of it being a mug. Who invented the word mug? And who invented the physical creation of this? It's all a matter of perspective. We are the creators of our own dream. Often we create these ideas for ourselves, and then we start reacting to them like a dreamer in a dream. Like a dreamer in a dream. That old saying, merrily, 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 merrily. Life is but a dream. Life is but a dream. It's time to wake up, my friend. It's time to wake up.